Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. A couple of days ago, I was here in Dubai in a beautiful coffee shop. I met a young lady in her 20th. She was working on her laptop. She told me, from here, I sell my digital services to Europe and Africa. I smiled, and I could see that this is the story of today's Middle East. Yes, too many things are happening, and we can say that the Middle East is now at a defining moment. We can hear and see a lot of things in terms of demographics, technology, geopolitics, and many others. But at the same time, we can as well observe and understand how the Middle East is moving from being only resilient by adapting and surviving, moving to a position of leadership for creating, innovating, shaping, and influencing. It's great to be here this morning. Such an exciting panel and amazing guests. And if you allow me and join me to welcome our panelists this morning, I will start with Her Excellency Rania Mazrouei, CEO Etihad Credit Insurance. صباح الخير. تفضلي. Mr. Ahmed Nassef, Group COO, Dopay. صباح النور. تفضل. Dr. Jarmo, Kotilaine, Strategic Advisor and Author. Good morning, please. And last but not least, join me to welcome Mr. Toby, Iles, Chief Economist. Happy to have you on stage. I have to say that we all enjoyed Dr. Mark fire chat discussion. It was beautiful and very interesting. And welcome to Dubai. We will talk a little bit about how the future looks like. And it's quite exciting and interesting to see and to understand where are we going and how are we making the future. And I would like to start with Mr. Ahmed, being a pioneer in digitization, and we had a little bit of insight about digitization a little bit earlier in the fire chat discussion. So when we talk about digitization, we're talking definitely about changes, about challenges that we can understand and we can turn into opportunities. What's your insight on digitization?
Well, I think, when we're looking at the challenges in front of us, and we talk a lot about the young population, and several speakers today have already mentioned kind of both the challenge and the opportunity with youth in our markets in this region. Digitization, I see, and we're a payroll payments company, a fintech. We operate in Egypt, and we have a base here in UAE. And we see that digitization as really a prerequisite for the next phase of growth for the region. So it may not be the job creator directly, but job creation can't happen without it today. Yeah. And one of the things, like, we could look at it in a bunch of different ways. When you look at the small and medium enterprise segment of the market, usually the SME sector in a healthy economy produces maybe 60–70% of the jobs in that economy. So in order for SMEs to thrive and to scale, that can't happen anymore without a digital framework, without being able to pay employees. I'm in Egypt, and in Egypt, most companies today still have to pay employees via cash, right? So a small business that might have multiple locations literally has to stop everything every month, put cash in envelopes, transport these envelopes around the country, and work stops, hands out the cash in the queue. This still happens today because in Egypt there are around between 50 and 60 million people who don't have a bank account. And there is no solution to pay these people. So in order for small business and medium business to grow, all their transactions need to be in a digital way in order for them to scale. The same thing happens also for young people when, in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of being able, that mobility that it gives them. So we see this every day as an employer in Egypt. We have a couple of hundred employees in Egypt, and what we see there is a typical college graduate might have a couple of years of experience in the ICT sector as a developer, let's say. The same level of skills as a developer, you can have one young person looking for $500 a month as a salary, and with the same exact skill set, another person could be looking for $5,000 a month. And the reason is, again, it goes to that digital aspect, because someone who, in the post-COVID period, was able to market themselves to the world, work for maybe a company in the GCC or in Europe or in the US, is going to be earning much more. And so you have this gap. Someone else who doesn't have the capability to get currency, to get money digitally, cross-border, isn't going to be able to do that.
Mr. Ahmed, how can we reduce this gap? Since we're talking about a gap, we can see countries now in the Middle East that are totally digitalized.
Yes.
And on the other side, we're talking about maybe Egypt as an example. We have a big portion of people, a big number of people that are still relying on cash. How can we reduce this gap?
Absolutely, and Dr. Mahmoud in the very beginning of the session mentioned today like how important it is. You know, it's the weakest link, right? That's the strength of a region, of the region's economy, and that's a very key piece, right? And Egypt is actually a good example of some positive things that have happened. So Egypt launched an instant payment network a few years ago called InstaPay. They didn't force people to use it. They didn't, have enforcement around it and fees. It was completely free. It just provided rails. And what we see in Egypt over the last couple of years since it's been launched is that everybody's now using it to send money, to get money. And now there is the beginning of the process of having fees related to it. But that first level just provides visibility, right? And it provides just an access point. That's really important. That's what we're doing with payroll also, because in payroll, it's the same issue. We don't require, and the regulator in Egypt doesn't require us to get information about social insurance and tax and contracts and things like this.
Yeah.
It's just a means of getting money out. It has to start this way.
Okay, beautiful, thank you. When we talk about digitization, the first people that come to our mind are the youth. So Dr. Jarmo, I would like to move to you and talk about the youth. I was looking at the faces in the room in the morning. We saw many boomers, some millennials, few Gen Z. How do you look at the youth today? Maybe they are watching us online. So how can we since people are always assets,
Yes.
yeah?
So,
How can we benefit from their own mind? There is a conflict between the boomers and the Gen Z, definitely. In every company, we blame each other. They work from home, we want them to work from office, and all these things. So how can we use the youth? How can we benefit from their mindset, from their creativity, from their leading way as well?
yeah, that is an excellent question.
Thank you.
Everybody this morning has talked about the asset that the demographics of this region represent. The fact that we have a significant young population, we have a low average age. To me, the interesting question from the policy perspective today is not how do we benefit from this asset, because we've heard most of the answers, quite frankly, this morning. The interesting question is, how do we make the most of this asset? How do we turn it into a growth driver? And I think the challenge for this region and many other parts of the world today still remains the reality that policymaking in this space is reactive. It is not ambitious enough. It is not ready enough to entertain transformative ideas. And the reason for that is that as the region goes through this youth bulge, there is, of course, understandable political sensitivity around unemployment. Unemployment is seen as a problem. And of course, it is a problem. And the responses, policy responses, very often tend to be emotional as well, and they tend to be short-term. But fundamentally, you don't fix this problem by making it somebody else's problem. You don't fix it by creating an oversized government sector. You don't fix it by putting the burden on companies through excessive regulation. You don't fix it through magic bullets either, through artificial job creation that creates little value and ultimately leaves people much more frustrated. Because I think the reality here is, and this is what we need to keep in mind, a bit of Economics 101, the demand for labor is a derived demand. Right? Unless you're a slave trader, which of course nobody in this day, almost nobody in this day and age is. If we want to make the most of this young population, we need to prioritize economic growth, economic development. GDP goes up, employment goes up. And if we invest in the right things, and those right things today, as everybody today has reminded us, are first and foremost technology. We increase the productive population of this young population. If we deregulate, as people have reminded us, if we radically revolutionize the way people are educated and trained and given access to information and data, we can enable this young population to do much, much more. But ultimately, thinking of unemployment as the issue is a distributional way of thinking. We need to focus on development. We need to focus on employment. And part of that in today's world is accepting Joseph Schumpeter's old idea of creative destruction. As people have reminded, during the Industrial Revolution, many jobs disappeared. Many others emerged. If we create more wealth, through productivity, through technology, we will be making the most of this asset.
That's interesting. Thank you. Your Excellency, talking about technology, and definitely we have to mention AI with the youth and with us. We are learning AI, artificial intelligence, but the youth, they have it like their bread and butter. How do you see today technology and artificial intelligence being used to support innovation, creativity, and definitely the youth?
Absolutely. Technology is very important, and nobody can deny this. It's changed the world in the last decade. And I was in China last week, and for the first time I realized I was disconnected from the rest of the world because I had to download so many separate apps to be able to communicate in there. Yeah. And that's really important. Why do I have to disconnect and connect and move between different platforms? Technology is a right that's available for every single person. It really included a lot of the community groups into the economy. The youth, the women, the underserved by the traditional services were able to access technology through their mobile phones. And this creates a great opportunity. We have to learn, and I'm so lucky. Thank you, Dr. Mobis. I hope I will not lose my job anytime soon because I come from a technology background, and back then everyone was asking me, why are you interested in technology? Because at that time it was finance and it was business, and I was like, okay, I would like to learn more. And since AI started to trend, I actually took on different courses to understand how this technology is going to disrupt the world as we live into it. If you talk to different people, they all have different perception or understanding of AI. They tell you AI will disrupt, we will lose our jobs. But instead of drilling into that segment of the conversation, let's understand AI. How do we use this technology to improve our lives, to enhance our jobs, to enable us to free ourselves from these tasks and move into intelligent type of work that will enable us to do more without being locked into our physical spaces. So our kids are born with that technology.
Yes.
I know we were fighting taking the iPads from them, but today they develop websites and they go trading and they have digital coins. I don't have any, but my kids do. And that's great for them. And I believe that with the wave of technology that's happening and also understanding what is critical to keep AI going, critical minerals, mining, lots of traditional trade opportunities that will enable us to secure that supply chain to keep that AI technology available for everyone. So really understanding the technology, understanding how is it going to impact me as a person, whether I am a CEO or I am a student or I'm a housewife, because even with my kids, I need to understand how they use this technology and invest in myself and my own ability to learn and understand and utilize this technology for me to grow.
Me, 100%. And I believe you agree as well that we heard this sentence a lot. AI will not come and replace people. AI will come and replace people who don't know how to work or how to use or who are not empowered by AI. So we need to learn this tool and make peace with AI instead of fighting AI and being far from it, right?
I saw an inspiring message from Sheikh Tahnoon to his group of companies yesterday. It was shared to me. And in that message that was sent, he said, invest 1 hour every day to learn something new.
Yeah.
Test this thing that you have learned over a week and implement and roll out something within the week. So if you really put these small steps into practice, it was really an eye-opener for me. And I thought, okay, if I do that, then I will build a collective experience
And
of
knowledge.
technology.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for sharing this. Mr. Toby, from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia today is a model as well of transformation and at the same time creating a new awareness. What can we learn? What are the lessons that we can learn from Saudi Arabia experience?
Thanks very much. So I'm focused on the Saudi, so I'm based there. So I'll highlight a couple of success factors and then a few of these sort of ongoing challenges, and I think it's probably relevant. I think a large portion of the success so far on Saudi Arabia's sort of journey for diversification comes down to the kind of social and structural reforms that we've seen in the early part of Vision 2030. So, you know, the changes in women's rights, reforms for tourist visas, regulatory improvements, all of these kinds of things, improvement in governance, tech readiness, developing a VC ecosystem, all of these kind of reforms which just gradually transform the supply side of the economy. So that's really been the highest sort of bang change so far. We've seen new sectors start to develop. That brings in investment, more efficiency as technology is applied, and then that creates jobs. The other thing it does is, and has done, is kind of create a sort of mindset shift, which I think is kind of quite significant in the region. So a different vision about what the economy should look like and what the future of work should look like.
Yeah.
The other, and sort of one sort of interesting subset that we're seeing quite a lot in the economy this year is a lot of, there's a lot of policy that's laser focused on building out local capacity and local supply chains. And you can sort of have a debate about whether that's the most efficient thing to do, but it is yielding some results in terms of just crowding in a bit more of the production of goods and services that are demanded into the local base and the ripple effects from that. I guess the second factor which links with this is high investment levels. So gross fixed capital formation in Saudi Arabia is almost 30% now. So when you've got a mixture of the reforms and investments, quite a powerful combination. In terms of challenges, just to sort of highlight a few which are ongoing. I guess the first one would be, focus on kind of higher value-added exports and sort of more advanced manufacturing, that sort of area, which is obviously difficult to do given global competition. You know, what we've seen in China in recent years, what we heard with India's prospects. It's difficult to do, but we are seeing some momentum there. And so in 26, 27, looking ahead, we'll see stuff coming out of Saudi that you wouldn't have thought about, right? So computers being made there, servers, data center, automotive sector, advanced manufacturing. More of this will start to emerge in the next couple of years. But that's still a challenge. The other one would be educational outcomes. So there's been a lot of reform in the educational sector, but still in terms of outcomes, in terms of having higher productivity throughout the workforce, that's still a work in progress, takes a long time, right? The last one I'd highlight would be just a private sector that invests a bit more in R&D, becomes more genuinely sort of innovative, and that starts to take more space, and maybe the balance shifts a bit in terms of state-led growth and the private sector. All of these things take time, but
okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing this. Mr. Ahmed, I would like to go back to you and maybe to Egypt in few examples. You mentioned that there are people now that they are not good friends with digitization in Egypt yet. How can we move from having informal people working in different businesses to formal people? How can we teach them digitization? And I'm not talking as well only about people that are working, maybe as well elderly who are very far from digitization. And when you come and you tell them, okay, you have only this chance, this way, they will tell you, I'm not getting it.
That's a really important point.
Thank you.
I think, an example of how we handle this, right? So, as I mentioned, there are between 50 and 60 million workers in Egypt who don't have a bank account. They are primarily cash-based. A few of them might have a mobile wallet or something like that, but most of them just are dependent on cash. So if I go to them, and I've been in technology most of my life and most of my professional career, and when you try to convince someone of something they don't know, that they're not aware of, it's very difficult to convince them. You know, I was in a company called Maktub, and we were one of the first internet companies in the region. And so we used to go around and tell people about how great being online is. You know, this is back in 2000. And people would say, why would I go online? I have my newspaper, I watch news on TV, and people thought we were nuts, right? And let alone to try to convince an advertiser to pay money to advertise online. That was absolutely not happening. So you really need to just make it really easy, and you need to show it to them. So we don't go and convince a worker, here's our Dopay card to use, because they'll say, I don't need it. I'm fine with cash. I pay everybody I deal with has cash. But we go to the company and we try to solve the company's problem. And the company has a whole different issue. They're not usually thinking of financial inclusion and bringing everyone into the digital economy. They're thinking, I have a problem. I can't pay my workers. And I'm losing a lot of money. I'm losing a lot of time and all of that stuff. So we create a platform, and then we go to the worker. And now the worker has to use this card because this is how they're getting paid. And we need to make sure that it's super simple. So we actually subsidize the program for the employee, because we can't go do what traditional banks are going to go give them a card. They're going to make them wait in lines at the branch, at the bank. They're going to make them pay a fee for the card that they're delivering. They're going to get a monthly fee for using it. So if we do that, they are going to go back to their supervisor and say, I don't want this card. So we make sure that card is free, that there is no charge for the service. They can use any ATM in Egypt 5 times a month and withdraw their money at no charge. So you have to make things simple and accessible for people to adopt a digital framework.
So basically make it easy for everyone. Yeah. Your Excellency, moving back to you, when we make things easy, what Mr. Ahmed said is something very important. As well, we have to think about sustainability. So yes, we are making things easy, we are making things happening, we are making this affordable and in everyone's hands, but we have at the same time to think about the sustainability of what we're doing. So what do you think the good players in the region should do to maintain this sustainability?
I think it's important to maintain a smooth journey overall, because technology and digital is all about the journey. From onboarding, once I'm onboarded with a bank, I don't want to go to another one because it's very painful.
Yeah.
But if I'm onboarded easily on a platform, then I will share this platform with everyone, given that it really gives me that experience. So that experience of using the platform has to be very smooth, has to be easy to use, and has to be widely available. The other thing is you need to create a two-way dialogue. You're not only providing the service, but you really need to know the pain points. How can you improve it? How can you continuously be in touch with your customer to make sure that you're actually there? I see a lot of financial institutions use the chatbots for helping the customers when they call or when they need help. And I promise you, nobody likes talking to bots, because you only go to the bot when you have a problem. And
No
that
one.
bot knows the easy problems that you don't need to talk to anyone. So it's really coming from that mindset. Why am I using technology to make my life easy? So it's really creating a channel of communication with your audience, making it easy to get on board and off board. I work in insurance, and the most important part of my business cycle is paying claims on time. It's not onboarding.
You know, I have to ask here this question, and since we have too many banks with us, why are you making this AI tool very complicated? Like last time, my husband was fighting with someone on the phone, and then I said, "What's happening?" And he said, "This AI is not understanding what I'm saying." It's like, yeah, it's an AI. So, but why is it too complicated in a world that is able to make it easier?
So I will answer you from where my
From the
experience
insurance
comes.
world, yeah. I have to meet someone from banks later to understand this.
So you have to use AI where it really gives you value. For me, I use a specially developed algorithm that we have developed at Etihad Credit Insurance to pull 400 million data records about buyers around the world for me to be able to assess the risk of this particular policy in a certain country. So I can't do that on my own. I don't have a team who will go around the world and find out this information. So data sources are available today. I build APIs, I pull all of that data, I build an algorithm, I train the algorithm, I feed it with all of my parameters so that I can issue the policy very quickly and be very realistic in my premium pricing. But I will not use AI for customer service.
Thank you.
Because they will not
Please
like
give her a big round of applause. Thank you. That's very important. No, because I wanted to ask this. I wanted to ask you that, like, customer service can be replaced by AI? Do you agree? Come on, I want to hear you. Do you agree? Yes or no? Do you want AI to replace customer service? If yes, raise your hand. Only one person. Only two. So we don't want AI to replace customer service. We love people, right?
We want AI. We want to use AI in the tasks that we are able to teach it.
Yeah.
And then it can help me solve this task without coming back to me. But for AI to figure out your problem and your mood and be able to calm you when you call and you're angry, it's not going to do that.
Thank you, Your Excellency. This was a great point to highlight. Mr. Toby, I would like to go back to you. And I would like to ask a question about what do you think are the type of works that should not be replaced by AI?
That was a question for me.
Yeah, for Mr. Toby. Can you hear me? Yeah. I think the speakers are a little bit far from us, this one.
Sorry,
So, what are the types of work that should not be replaced by AI? In your own opinion. Give me three, top three.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I suppose, I guess AI can, to the extent that it can be more productive, then I guess it can make sense. But a lot of jobs still involve human interaction, and obviously there's a wider sort of policy question, obviously, for governments about, do you want a population that doesn't have anything to do? Maybe it's best to employ people who are less efficient, but at least people have some purpose and activity. So yeah, I think it's kind of a complex question, but it's sort of interesting in regard to things like, people talk about manufacturing, like we've had that whole discussion this year with Trump, right? The US manufacturing, bring back the jobs, but I suppose the reality is it wouldn't really do that anyway, given the mechanization and robots. So it is kind of interesting how it sort of shifts the debates.
Okay. I would like to hear as well your opinion about what is neutrality. So what's your opinion on being neutral nowadays?
I think in the region here, obviously strategic neutrality, I think has been a big winner. We're sitting in Dubai, which is probably the most vivid example of that. And I guess one question with the Trump administration would have been, well, can that continue? Will the region be forced to pick sides? And I guess so far it seems not. And it probably makes sense. Like the logic of this neutrality is pretty fundamental. You've got long-standing relations with the US and the West on defense, etc. But Asia, China is buying your main export, and that relationship has deepened over time. So the logic's there. The dynamics are interesting, especially bringing it to the tech discussion. So in recent years, we've seen more of a pivot to Asia in the region. So trade, for example, green technology, green energy. Now this year, we've almost seen a little bit of a swing back to the US, given the region's AI ambitions and desire for the US chips, right? So on the one hand, you've got a lot of Chinese investment in building out digital infrastructure in Gulf countries, but on the other hand, Gulf countries want to build a lot of data centers with AI chips. So it's not straightforward to maintain this neutrality, but I think so far it seems pretty successful. And I think maybe just to conclude on why that might hold is that I think in a way the region, you can see it as being in a crossroads of some of these big sort of mega forces, so you've got green energy, so renewable energy investment in the region is very high. AI ambitions are here. And I think what brings it together is that actually, as we've discussed, AI needs a lot of energy, right? So the world basically needs power. So, maybe data's the new oil, but data also needs oil. So it's sort of, I think there's this kind of fusion of old and new economies, which at least in the near to medium term helps the region a lot.
Thank you. Dr. Jarmo, when we talk about resilience, we talk about adaptability, we talk about surviving. What do we talk about when we talk about resilience in the economic world? How can you define resilience in an economic world? And what do we have to do to be resilient?
Okay, so I was going to say I'm not a dictionary, so let's not worry about the definition. But
no.
You added something to your question, which is
now it's okay. Okay,
now
we agree.
So what I would say is, let's step back and look at the big picture in our region, in the Middle East. Now, and it's easy to forget, we're in the company of people who in many ways are at the forefront of implementing and driving change in this part of the world. One of the interesting things to my mind, and I'm actually trying to write something on this right now, is the corporate sector. In the Middle East, usually when we talk about economics, we talk about macro. But countries, economies are made up of companies and people. You can't have a healthy economy without healthy companies. So as a thought experiment, what does a typical representative Middle Eastern company, if there is such a thing, look like? I think still today, and this all has macro implications, it is a business with a simple business model. It's characterized by a low level of what us dismal scientists call economic complexity. It is typically characterized by relatively low levels and stagnant levels of productivity, partly because of the pricing of different factors of relative pricing of different factors of production. And partly as a result of this simplicity, low productivity, it is characterized by a lack of dynamism. Companies here typically do not innovate, do not change. They keep doing the same thing over and over again, present company excluded, of course, right? And when we look at this, we zoom out to the macro level. What are these countries like? They are extremely trade-dependent economies. They're highly open economies. So instead of producing, they trade. Where do they like to invest their money? Infrastructure. So there's a lot of construction going on, and some of that is extremely important, extremely valuable, but at the end of the day, construction is a low productivity activity that doesn't itself automatically produce value. So how do we create resilience? We move away from this paradigm to an economy that produces goods and services, because that is no longer a luxury in today's fragmenting global economy. As we saw during COVID, part of your resilience comes from having productive capacity, right? These economies need to be dynamic. We need to start thinking ahead. And this is one of the reasons why technology adoption is so important, because it forces you. But also start stretching out value chains, start looking for new opportunities and enable new kinds of entrepreneurship. We have enough coffee shops, we have enough construction companies. Let's focus on fixing real economic problems. And it is only, by the way, by doing this that we can then start making proper use of our resources, including human capital, to give them the kinds of jobs that they, because of their skills and interests, deserve. And yes, the region is investing very much, which is fantastic because it is changing very rapidly, it is diversifying. But what matters, as the Chinese have demonstrated, is not how much you invest, it is how you invest. It's not the inputs, it is the outcomes. The amount of investment is, in a sense, an opportunity, but you need to multiply that by the economic multiplier. If the economic multiplier is high, you get much value bang out of the buck. If the economic multiplier is low, you have a problem.
Thank you, Dr. Jarmo. We definitely hear your point of view, and we respect your point of view. Dr. Your Excellency, do you innovate always in your company as being the CEO?
We're in the UAE, and innovation is in
It's
our
key.
DNA.
Yes.
I always go back to the year 2014, when the Prime Minister, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, initiated the innovation agenda across the federal and local department. And it was an eye-opener for everyone that was here at that time to go and look internally within their organizations. How can I disrupt myself? What are my weaknesses? Let's do it. And in 2017, at that time, I was with the with the DIFC. And at that time, it was the biggest financial services companies come from all over the world, the asset managers, the banks, they set up there. Entrepreneurs could not afford to come into the DIFC. And in 2017, we looked at the strategy in the future of finance, said, how will we be disrupted as a financial center? We will be disrupted if we ignore the existence, the emergence of the technology and the existence of the entrepreneurs who were really challenging the world as we know it in terms of businesses. And we started by creating an accelerator where we brought in startups and financial institutions, and we said, we're here to facilitate this conversation and co-creation. And today the DIFC has more than 1,000 startups compared to a time when they were not even able to apply for licensing.
And from through different fields as well.
The innovation was, the regulation for the innovation was being built day over day, was progressive, it was inclusive. The startups were at the table with the regulator discussing and explaining the technology for the regulator so that they understand what they were doing. And really having an open mind towards innovation, because it is going to disrupt. It is disrupting as we speak if you don't open your mind for innovation. And then we started to see the financial institutions with their innovation labs and all the initiatives to attract those minds and understand what are the potential of disruption in the financial services sector. And today you can see that innovation is across the whole region. And the UAE has an advantage of being innovative mindset, centrally located, logistics network, attracting talent and attracting investors and attracting the biggest companies to come and benefit from its strategic location to access the rest of the world. We saw a lot of companies at that time come to the UAE, get the innovation license, and then scale to Saudi. So the whole region complements itself, but you really need to be able to set these regulations ahead, open the innovation channels, and enable the youth by educating them, by attracting the talent, by subsidizing the licenses and the cost of work to enable that innovation flow into the region.
Yeah, and adding to this, like the UAE today is in a leadership position, shaping, influencing, and inspiring others. Thank you for this. I would like to end this session with a quick word. How would you describe the future in one word? I would start with you, Mr. Ahmed. In one word, how would you describe the future?
For this region, the word is bright. It's a very bright future.
Yes, it is indeed. Dr. Jarmo, how would you describe the future in one word?
Well, I hope the relevant word is ambitious, because I think the opportunity is there.
Yes, thank you.
Probably energy. Energy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Your Excellency.
Inclusive.
Inclusive. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. I don't know if you have any questions. We will open the floor for a couple of questions for our panelists. Yes, please. If you can address the question to one of the panelists, please.
Okay, hello. This is Ahmed El-Gamal from Bank Misr Cairo. Thank you for this fruitful discussion. It's really exciting here.
Thank you.
And as we are all from banking industry, my question will be a little bit bank-centered. And it is for Mr. Ahmed. With the growing use of digital wallets and instant payments in Egypt, how do you see the role of traditional banks evolving in the cashless economy? Thank you.
Yeah, this is, this is something that we deal with on a daily basis, right? In Egypt, we have to work with a bank partner currently, although the central bank is revised now with new regulations and is licensing payment service providers next year. But traditional banks today, unfortunately in Egypt, are very focused on that top 10%, whether it's in terms of their retail banking or their corporate banking, right? So there needs to be a novel approach around seeing really the opportunities that are there in the SME sector and in the retail sector, because the real opportunity, the future, is in that other 80 or 90% of the population, the other 2 or 3 million businesses that are small and medium businesses in a place like Egypt. and they are not being serviced. So a good example is if an SME business needs a loan today to be able to expand, if they're going to go to a private bank, a typical bank in Egypt, they're going to go through a process that could last, and this is an example, a specific one I saw that could last between 3 and 6 months from one of our clients, right, when they're looking for financing from a traditional bank. When, in Egypt, through the financial regulatory authorities, there are now lending institutions that are very focused on the SME sector. Those approvals take 1 to 2 days, right? So that's an opportunity that banks are not getting. Another way is to really change the paradigm when they work with financial technology companies. It's very difficult for a legacy institution to really reshape itself without being open to a partnership with a fintech or with a technology company, right? And I think that means really having to rethink the way we do everything. And I think it's difficult for these institutions, right? The institutions that win will be ones that are willing to take these risks. Otherwise, we're going to see the banking sector being overtaken by a lot of these challenger banks, as we see in Europe, right? When you look at Revolut or Monzo or Chime in the US, right? This is where the future is going. And I think until our institutions wake up to that fact in these emerging parts of the Middle East region, they will continue to face challenges.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other question? That's amazing. It was so clear. Thank you. Thank you for joining us this morning. Mr. Ahmed, Nassef, it was great having you with us, Group CEO, Dopay, Dr. Jarmo, Kotilaine, Strategic Advisor and Author, Mr. Toby, Iles, Chief Economist, and our special guest as well, Your Excellency Rania Mazrouei, CEO, Etihad Credit Insurance. It was amazing having you with us. Thank you for your input for this panel. Thank you.